Somebody just spent more money on a football tournament than some countries spend on their entire army. Let that sink in for a second. Not a war, not a space mission, a football tournament. And the crazy part, you and I, we're already paying for it. Most people have no idea. But by the end of this video, you will. And honestly, you might never watch a World Cup the same way again. Think about the last time you watched a football match. Maybe with your friends, maybe with your family. Everyone's screaming at the TV. Someone spills the drink. Someone blames the referee. You know that feeling. That electric, uncontrollable energy that takes over your entire body when your team scores. That moment when time stops and you feel like the whole world is celebrating with you. That's what FIFA sells. That emotion, that feeling. And in 2026, they sold it for the most money in human history. Because FIFA 2026 isn't just a World Cup. It's the biggest sporting event ever attempted on planet Earth. 48 teams, 16 cities, 3 countries, USA, Canada, Mexico, all hosting simultaneously. 104 matches, millions of fans, billions of eyes, and a price tag so enormous that when you hear the number, you're going to pause. You're going to rewind. You're going to think I said it wrong. But I didn't. The total estimated cost of FIFA World Cup 2026, infrastructure, security, stadiums, operations, everything, crosses over $50 billion. $50 billion. For context, that's more than the GDP of over 80 countries on this planet. Entire nations that have millions of citizens, hospitals, schools, armies, their whole economy is smaller than what's being spent on one football tournament. So the question that should be burning in your mind right now is, who is actually paying for this? Where is this money coming from? And more importantly, why should you care? Because here's where it gets really interesting and really dark. Most people assume that FIFA pays for the World Cup. FIFA is rich, right? They make billions. But the truth is, FIFA doesn't build the stadiums. FIFA doesn't pay for the roads. FIFA doesn't hire the security forces. FIFA doesn't cover the hotel construction or the new airports or the expanded metro systems or the training facilities. FIFA shows up to the party, and somebody else pays for the party, and that somebody is the host countries and their taxpayers. And in the case of this World Cup, those taxpayers are Americans, Canadians, and Mexicans, ordinary people, people paying taxes every month so their government can afford schools and hospitals and roads, except a massive chunk of that money is now going toward making sure the World Cup runs perfectly. Now, before you say, okay, but it's worth it, it brings tourism, it creates jobs, I need you to hold that thought because we're going to come back to it. And what I'm going to show you is going to completely change how you think about that argument. But first, let me take you back, because to understand how we got here, you need to understand what FIFA actually is, and it's not what most people think. FIFA, Fédération Internationale de Football Association, is technically a non-profit organization. Let that word sit with you. Non-profit. As in, supposedly not focused on making money. As in, supposedly existing for the good of the sport. But FIFA made over $7.5 billion from the 2022 Qatar World Cup alone. From broadcast rights, from sponsorship deals, from licensing, from merchandise. And the best part, they paid zero taxes on most of it because of their non-profit status and special agreements with host governments. So FIFA collects billions, the host country spends billions, and FIFA walks away clean. This is the model, and it's been running for decades. Qatar 2022 cost an estimated $300 billion, the most expensive World Cup in history at the time, and the whole world talked about it, the controversies, the workers, the heat, the human rights questions. But 2026 is different because 2026 is in America, the richest country on earth. And because it's in America, people assume it'll be fine, it'll be efficient, it'll be worth it. The scrutiny is quieter, the outrage is smaller, and that is exactly when you need to pay the most attention. So let's talk about the money. The actual money, broken down so clearly that you'll never forget it. The USA is contributing the largest share. American cities like New York, Los Angeles, Dallas, Miami, San Francisco, they're all hosting matches, and each of these cities signed host city agreements with FIFA. These agreements are treated as confidential, meaning the public isn't always allowed to see exactly what promises were made. But investigative journalists and leaked documents have revealed that host cities agree to cover enormous costs. Security costs alone for American venues are projected in the hundreds of millions of dollars. The U.S. government, federal and state level, is putting taxpayer money into transportation upgrades, temporary infrastructure, law enforcement deployments, and stadium modifications. The AT&T Stadium in Dallas, MetLife Stadium in New Jersey, Hard Rock Stadium in Miami. These venues are getting massive upgrades, not all of which they necessarily need after the tournament ends. Canada is spending billions on Vancouver and Toronto preparations. Mexico, already dealing with economic pressure, is spending heavily on Guadalajara, Monterrey, and Mexico City. And in every single case, FIFA's contract ensures that if anything goes wrong, if costs overrun, if security fails, if there's a problem, it's the host country's responsibility, not FIFA's. FIFA's financial risk, almost zero. Now here's where I need you to really focus, because this is the part that almost nobody talks about. When a city spends money on the World Cup, that money has to come from somewhere, and governments don't have unlimited money. So when they spend more on one thing, they spend less on something else. Economists call this the opportunity cost. What did we give up to have this? In some American cities that are hosting games, local community programs have quietly received budget cuts. Infrastructure projects in lower-income neighborhoods have been pushed back. Funding that was promised to schools or healthcare facilities got delayed. Nobody announces this. There's no press conference where a politician says, "Hey, we're cutting your community center so that Messi can play here in the summer." But it happens, quietly, behind the scenes, while the stadium lights shine bright, and the tourism argument, the one I told you to hold, here it is. Every time a country hosts a major sporting event, the government promises an economic boom. Tourism will explode, hotels will fill up, restaurants will thrive, jobs will be created. The World Cup will pay for itself and then some. This is the pitch, every single time. And researchers have studied it, economists have studied it, and the data tells a completely different story. The New Economics Foundation studied the economic impact of hosting major sporting events across multiple countries over decades. Their conclusion, the promised economic boost almost never materializes at the scale governments claim. In Brazil 2014, cities spent enormous amounts, and afterwards some of the built stadiums became literal white elephants, expensive structures barely used, costing millions annually just in maintenance. South Africa 2010 saw similar patterns, even Atlanta after the Olympics. The economic legacy was far weaker than promised. The tourists come, but they spend money at big brand hotels and FIFA-partnered businesses, not at local small restaurants and shops. The money doesn't trickle down the way politicians say it will. So who actually profits from the World Cup? This is the answer everyone should know, but almost nobody does. FIFA profits. The broadcasting giants profit. Adidas and Nike profit. Coca-Cola profits. Visa profits. The official sponsors, the companies that paid FIFA hundreds of millions for the right to put their logo on official World Cup merchandise, they get massive global exposure and they profit enormously. The big construction companies that win the stadium contracts profit. The security firms profit. The hotel chains that spike their prices during tournament weeks profit. These are the real winners. These are the entities that the system is actually designed to reward. And while all of this is happening, while billions are flowing through contracts and broadcast deals and sponsorships, there are migrant workers somewhere, far from the spotlight, doing the physical work of making it all possible. Building, cleaning, operating, and their stories barely make the highlight reel. Now I want to give you a moment, because I know this is heavy, and I don't want you to feel hopeless, because this video isn't about making you angry and leaving you there. This is about understanding, because when you understand how something actually works, you have power. And power changes things. So let me flip this. Let me show you the other side. There are real people whose lives are genuinely changed by the World Cup. Young coaches in small Mexican towns who get access to FIFA development programs, kids in disadvantaged communities in Los Angeles who get free football clinics because of World Cup partnerships, local businesses in Vancouver who finally get international exposure, tourism workers in Guadalajara who work more hours in 3 weeks than they do in 3 months. These things are real. The debate isn't black and white. It never is. But the question is, could the same amount of money, spent differently, have helped even more people? And who got to decide how it was spent? That's a question worth asking. And it's a question that more people, especially young people, people your age, are starting to ask out loud. Because here's the truth that nobody in FIFA's marketing department wants you to think about. The World Cup isn't just sport. It's one of the most powerful political and economic tools on earth. Countries compete for years just to host it. They promise FIFA the world, tax exemptions, free land, government protection, zero competition from other events. Why? Because hosting the World Cup is a statement of global power. It says, we're on the world stage. We matter. Look at us. And for politicians, that's incredibly valuable. Even if the economic math doesn't add up, the political math does. And FIFA knows this. FIFA has always known this. They sit in Zurich in their headquarters and they hold the most valuable sporting property in human history. And they use that leverage masterfully. Every 4 years, countries practically beg FIFA to choose them. And FIFA negotiates from a position of almost total power. Now here's the moment I've been building to. The thing that stopped me cold when I first learned it. The thing that I think is going to hit you hard right now. You know what FIFA's total revenue was from the 2022 Qatar World Cup? $7.5 billion, record-breaking, historic. FIFA made $7.5 billion in 4 years, and they gave $500 million of it back in development funding to member associations around the world. That sounds generous. Until you do the math, that's less than 7%. FIFA kept over 93% of what it made, and the host country, Qatar, spent somewhere between $200 and $300 billion to make that World Cup happen. FIFA spent nothing on building it. Qatar spent everything. FIFA made $7.5 billion. Qatar's return on investment from tourism and economic activity, not even close to what they spent. And in 2026, the numbers are going to be even bigger. FIFA's projected revenue from 2026 alone is expected to exceed $11 billion, $11 billion from a non-profit organization, while American and Canadian and Mexican taxpayers fund the infrastructure for free. This is the machine. This is how it works. And now, you know. So what do you do with this? What does knowing this actually change? Everything and nothing. And that tension? That's where the most important conversations happen. Because sport is real. The emotion is real. The joy is real. That feeling when your country scores in extra time and you lose your mind, that's one of the purest human experiences there is. Nobody can take that from you, and they shouldn't. Football at its core is beautiful. The World Cup at its core is beautiful. 32, now 48, nations. Different languages, different cultures, different histories, all united by a ball and a goal in 90 minutes that can change everything. But beauty and honesty can coexist. You can love something and still ask hard questions about it. You can celebrate the tournament while demanding that the people who profit most from it take better care of the people who make it possible. You can enjoy every single match of FIFA 2026, and at the same time, understand the system behind it well enough to think critically about it. Because the most powerful thing a young person can be right now in 2026, in a world drowning in noise and content and headlines, is informed. Not cynical, not naive, informed. The players on that field, they worked their whole lives to get there. The fans in those stadiums, they saved for months to be there. The kids watching at home in every country who dream of being the next Mbappe or Vinicius or whoever their hero is, they deserve the best version of this sport. And the best version of this sport is one where the money doesn't only flow up, where the workers who build the stadiums are treated with dignity, where the host communities actually see lasting benefit, where FIFA's billions are used to grow football in places that have never had the resources to develop real talent. The best version is possible. But it only becomes possible when enough people understand how the current version actually works. So the next time you watch a FIFA 2026 match, and you will, because it's going to be electric, it's going to be incredible, it's going to be the most watched sporting event in history, just hold this in the back of your mind. Someone paid for this. Someone always pays. And knowing who and why and how, that makes you different from the millions of people watching without thinking. That makes you the kind of person who doesn't just consume the world. You understand it. And that, honestly, is the most dangerous thing you can be. If this video made you think differently about anything, drop it in the comments. I want to know what hit you hardest. And if you've never subscribed, this is the channel where we go deeper than the highlights. We go behind the story every single week. I'll see you in the next one.